Imago Intentional Dialogue. What we've done so far, I call structured dialogues. And what that means is that the sentence stems are already given to you. And they're in a progression. And it's a very intentional progression to start to move down beneath our conscious mind, what we already know, to more about what we don't know. And that's what the stems do. So when I ask you a question, there's two things about questions. One, you can only answer with what you consciously know. You answer with your story about yourself, what you know. The other thing with questions is, Jim, are you going to wear that today? Bill, did you finish your breakfast? Chrissy, are you really going to go to that thing tonight? Like, there's agendas in the questions that we were raised with. And we're pretty smart kids. We figure out, oh, I know what they want from me, or I need to figure out what they want from me and give it to them. So we try to avoid questions because of these two reasons. The stems, what I'm feeling right now is allow me to search beneath my consciousness a little bit to see what's there. And that's why we keep hearing this. I thought this was resolved because you were coming at it from this perspective. You weren't accessing more unconscious things, more body-based memories, like the body keeps score information. So structured dialogues are really critical, and we use them in the workshop because we're going to send the couple off with a workbook, and we want them to be able to follow a script enough to experience the dialogue. So when I give you a dyad, I'm giving you a scripted set of stems. I'm going to pass these around so you can see. This is the official workbook that you would get in a couples workshop, Imago couples workshop. I designed my own manual for my retreat because it was 3.5 days instead of 2 or 2.5 days. And so I included more in here, and I just had it match my PowerPoints, and I just wanted like an experience. So you can look through both of these and just, however much time you want to take just to look through them. So in an Imago intentional dialogue, we typically go beyond mirroring. When we bring somebody into a workshop or a training, if you don't get mirroring, you're going to come off the rails. Because you're going to add your interpretations, you're going to pull back into your stories. It's going to be hard to stay in this person's world and try to get what they're saying. Especially if what their experience is very different, it's harder for me to understand it. So we really need people to understand mirroring before we go to the next step. And most of the dialogues don't, you may have a piece of validation and empathy at the end. So today we're going to work with validation and empathy. Honey, will you check the temperature? I don't know if I'm warm because I'm up here in the corner, or just make sure that they're on. So we're going to learn validation and empathy. These steps, when you invite a couple into validation, understand that in order to validate and have empathy for somebody else, I need to have reclaimed enough of my lost function to get that. So if my feelings are shut down, it's hard for me to validate, empathize feelings. If my thinking shut down, it's hard for me to validate or empathize cognitively, like what you're saying, what you think. So we can't really empathize when we have parts of us that are shut down. So it's a process. So when people go to validate their partner, they will really struggle. If they got it, if they could easily validate this, it probably wouldn't be an issue. So there's several levels of validation, and you'll kind of learn them as you go. But the basic phrases are, you make sense to me, and what makes sense is. And it's easier to validate our colleagues because it's not about us. But if Stephen is upset with me and I go to validate him, it's really powerful if I can say, here's the part of reality that we share. I did do that. I did use an aggressive tone. I did judge you. I did criticize you. Whatever it is. Like, if I can own it, the energy leaves and makes space. But validating it can bring up shame for the person owning it. So a lot of times people resist. If they are shame avoidant, they don't like that feeling, they'll resist owning that part of the experience. So for instance, you left your socks on the floor. And then I go on to tell a story. Well, that's because you're a slob. That means you don't love me. That means you don't respect me. Da, 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 da. When we go to validate, we don't have to validate any of the other things, but we can validate, I do leave my socks on the floor. And given your experience of me leaving the socks on the floor, I can make sense that to you, that means I don't care. And in your world, if I cared, I would think of you and pick up the socks. So when I don't, I imagine you might feel hurt. Is that how you feel? So we move into validation, and then sort of given the logic of that person's world, we try to imagine what they're feeling. So we're going to practice this using the social journey. So each of you will pick a repressive message, just one, and we'll be doing a dialogue after lunch where you'll be sharing about the message I received in childhood and just some structured stems. So we get to practice validation, empathy. It's super easy to validate somebody when you hear that story. Well, it makes sense if you got that message that you would feel, and then you would decide, and it's easier. And then I imagine you might feel, and we just use a couple feeling words, one or two. I like sad, mad, glad, scared. Like those generally are going to hit something. Sad, mad, glad, scared, hurt, lonely, some feeling word, and then you check, does that feel validating? Are those the feeling words? Are those the feelings? And that stuff's in your script. So you won't have to remember all this. But so when we go to do a full Imago intentional dialogue, we don't have a script. We don't use a script. We are meeting the couple where they're at, what they want to talk about. So when and I'll do a demonstration here. When we're doing a dialogue with a couple, they pick a topic. We do not pick a topic. And we're doing this. Okay? They pick the topic. They agree on the topic because consent is important. Somebody starts. The other person's mirroring, summarizing. This all sounds familiar, right? Then a statement of validation. In hearing all that, what makes sense to me is, does that feel validating? They don't need to mirror back. Does that feel validating? Yes, it feels validating, or what I want to add or emphasize is, or what would feel validating to me is to hear this. So that's some self-responsibility on that person's part. That's hard to ask for what we need and want. So they may or may not be able to say what would feel validating. And everything is okay in an Imago session. That's great. Keep going with the energy, right? We don't have to fix people. But they may or may not be able to say what I want to add or emphasize or what would feel validating is. And you say, okay, great. So thank you for trying to make sense, and we'll keep working on figuring out what would feel validating. And given that, I imagine you feel a couple feeling words, Is that what you're feeling? Yes, that's what I'm feeling, or I would like to add. Okay, so we're doing this back and forth one way. Then we switch. Do we switch topics? No, we stay on the same topic because all roads lead to Rome. So the person, when we switch, is just, and what came up for me in listening to you is, if it's a topic, let's say it's the electric bill, well, what comes up for me around the electric bill is, okay. If this is a couple that has a connection, I feel like the connections, they're not like in the middle of a huge rupture. I might invite, before we switch it fully into that person's world, I might invite them to say something like, what touched me about what you just shared is. Or the part that that really makes sense to me from my perspective is, or something that's bridging the two worlds. Like, I heard about your world. This is a little bit more about me than you. What touched my heart is, right? And then move more fully into this other person's world around the topic. One tip or trick is to, rather than frame the topic as like a problem-solving thing, which is how they're going to want to frame it. Like, you want to have more sex, I want to have less sex. You want me to cook from scratch, I want to supplement with some other pre-made things. Look, you want to spend more money, I want to spend less money. Instead, I'm going to say, let's keep the topic a little more general about sex, about chores or cooking, or about money. Let's just start out by learning something about each other in the broader topic. So my first memory of sex is what I took that to mean, what I really wanted, what I longed for, what didn't go well, what I feared was. Help them just share about sex in general before they start trying to problem solve for these lost functions, which are survival skills. So I like to just go, well, let's just start with the general topic and then we'll move into more specifics in future sessions. But first, I just want to see if we can just learn to be a little more comfortable talking about very hard topics. Sex, money, relatives, friends, these are hard topics. So that's one way that I keep them out of problem solving. But in the full intentional dialogue, we are not controlling the topic. We're staying on one topic, and we're helping them validate and empathize as they're fully into the other person's world. What this does is it helps them differentiate. Because for me to enter your world helps highlight how my world's different. So when I go to another country, I come back, I realize, oh, these are two very different places. So it helps with the differentiation process. It also helps with I think the circle is here, the spiral. It helps us move here from unconscious, reactive, symbiotic to intentional consciousness and differentiation. So I become more conscious of how you're different from me and how I'm different from you, but still connected. There's still that connection because we felt seen and heard. Okay, so what I'd like to do is do a demonstration. Again, another one of Emily's beautiful slides. Here are the steps: make an appointment, mirror, summarize, validate, empathize. Unless you want to do the demo, Emily, you're welcome. You feel ready?
I can't.
I would love for you. Who would like to try a dialogue with Emily facilitating? Okay, hop on up.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Sit right here, just get messed up. I think we need somebody else, unless we're going to do Gestalt and you're talking to an empty chair.
I can do that too. Or I could be both people.
We just go back and forth. So what I heard me say is,
Steven,
The chairs, yeah, the camera.
your chair is hitting the camera.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Look at how patient Emily is up there. Okay, yay, Jim!
welcome.
Roll off that hurts. I'll catch you.
Welcome to you both. Thanks for volunteering. That's brave of you. Is there one of you that would like to send first? And we're just making it up as we go along, because I'm guessing y'all don't have beef with one another at this point.
Not yet.
Okay. Not yet.
We'll see how this goes.
That's right. Did you actually? Is there somebody that wants to send?
He said he would.
Oh, you said you'd send first. Okay, perfect. Okay. So the first step would be to make an appointment and make sure you let him know what you want to talk about, so that he knows what he's consenting to.
Okay. Let's see. I want to talk about unmet needs.
All right. I'm up for that.
Yeah, beautiful.
Okay.
Just go ahead and center a little bit, some nice eye contact, if that feels comfortable, and a few deep breaths in sync. Get your nervous systems firing together. Beautiful. Well done. All right. And then just go ahead and get started. What do you want to let him know?
I feel like as an adult, I still have this little boy inside of me that I need to help him meet the needs that weren't met by his parents.
Okay. So I'm hearing that as an adult, you still have this little boy inside you that needs to help, or you need to help the little boy meet the needs that weren't met by the parents. Am I getting you?
Yes.
Is there more?
Not yet.
And then let him know a little bit more maybe about what some of those unmet needs might be.
So this little boy had, so little Joey, we'll call him little
Okay.
Joey, very unrealistic expectations of him as a kid. His parents were very focused on high achievement, making good impression on people, and little Joey couldn't find himself in all of that.
Okay. So little Joey's parents had really high expectations for him, for achievement and how he would be with other people. And I don't think I got all that. Can you share a little bit more?
Beautiful, good job.
I think you got most of it, but I can add more.
Okay.
Little Joey felt like he couldn't just be a kid and have fun and be playful,
Okay.
because my parents had all these unexpected or unrealistic expectations on me.
Okay. So little Joey just couldn't be himself, be a kid, have fun, play, because of all these unrealistic expectations.
Yes,
Am I getting you?
you are.
Okay. Is there more?
No.
And what I think I really needed back then was?
I really needed my parents just to have me be myself, and be the fun-loving, playful kid that I didn't realize was in me till I created more space intentionally from my parents as I got older.
Okay. So what little Joey needed was just more space to be himself, needed the support from his parents to be that, and wasn't able to be that until he was older and got space from his parents. Is that
Yes.
getting you?
Yes.
Is there more?
No.
And if I had received that back then, what you would see different in me now is?
Okay. If I received that unconditional love, unrealistic expectations, if I could just have been myself as a kid, I think I'd be more rich because I'd have less money that I had spent on therapy. But then I just turned 60 this year, and I feel like all those younger years were not wasted, but it's just been such a struggle because I felt like I didn't really find myself till, I don't even know when, but I feel like I'm so late in the game of finding myself. I know I still have lots of years to come, God willing, but it's like, gosh, things could have been different with my parents back then. I could have been on the road to really being myself and enjoying life much sooner.
Okay. So, if your parents had given you that unconditional love as a child, you would be a lot richer right now because you wouldn't have spent so much money on therapy.
Right.
And although you're in your 60s, you kind of view that as wasted time, but maybe not wasted, but you've got a lot of time left, you hope, and you're happy that you're making these discoveries now. And am I getting most of that?
You are.
Is there anything more about that? Anything I missed or anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I'd just like to go on record. Is that the camera? Thank you for the free therapy for both of you. I'm glad y'all are here. Okay.
It makes sense to me that you'd feel that way. I really understand why if you didn't get the love you wanted as a kid and there was all these high expectations, why it would leave you feeling like there's something else I need.
Let's make sure really quick that he's all the way done. Is there any more there that you want to say about unmet needs, or do you feel like it's complete?
No.
Okay. And then, can you summarize? Can you offer just the bullet points of what you heard?
So, as a kid, your parents had really high expectations for you, and it was all about achieving and how you presented to other people, and you really lost a sense of who you were yourself. And in that loss, it kept you trying to overfunction to please everybody, and not really knowing you. And as an adult, it feels like you've maybe wasted a little bit of time, wish you had gotten there sooner, wish you'd had that unconditional love right from the start, so that you could have avoided all those years of therapy.
Mm-hmm. Does that feel like a fair summary?
Yeah, does that feel like a good summary?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any part I missed?
No, you were spot on. Thank you.
Nice. And then you already did a beautiful job starting that validation.
Okay.
Can you start from the beginning again?
It really makes sense to me that you'd feel that way. I understand if you don't get that unconditional love as a child, you just keep trying to be good enough. Maybe kept you over functioning in ways that weren't healthy for you. You couldn't just relax and be you and settle into being yourself. Is that a good summary?
Yeah. Does that feel validating? Does that feel validating?
Does that feel validating?
Yes.
All right. And is there anything else that might feel validating?
Is there anything else that might feel validating?
No.
Right. And then that empathy piece, Jim, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to guess that there's a certain sense of sadness that you didn't get that earlier, and maybe a little frustration that you've had to work so hard as an adult to get what you should have gotten as a child, and having to give it to yourself rather than getting it from those people that you sort of should have expected it from.
Yes.
Yeah, and then check in. Is that what you're feeling?
Is that what you're feeling?
Yeah, exactly what I'm feeling.
All right. And is there anything else you might be feeling?
Is there anything else?
No.
All right. Beautiful. Go ahead and thank each other for that dialogue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And then, just reset a little bit, right? Stretch, do whatever you need to do before we go in the opposite direction. Right? Okay. All right. Excellent. Okay. So, there's a couple different ways you can start, or you could talk about the unmet needs, what your thoughts or your feelings are about that. You could also start with, what was coming up for me while you were talking, Joey.
Yeah. When you were sharing that with me, I was feeling some of those same things from my own childhood, so it was easy for me to empathize with you, to feel what you might be feeling. There was a lot of performative aspects of myself as a child, not being able to fully be myself.
So what I hear you say is you felt a connection with me because you felt similarly to me when you were a child, and not having those needs met. You felt like you had to perform.
Yeah.
Am I hearing you?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, there's a little bit more. I grew up in a really strict fundamental Christian home, and I had my church self and my school self, my school friends, and never really let those mix. And so I was playing a role with one group, playing a role with another group, and sort of lost who I am between those two.
So what I hear you say is because you grew up in a strict fundamentalist Christian family, you had one set here, the church, and then one set here, the school, and you kept those separate, and you couldn't like intermingle the two.
Yeah.
Did I get that?
Did I get that?
Yeah, you did. The only part that I'd like to add is that it kept me not knowing which was really me.
So you got lost in that mix. You couldn't really find who you were.
Yeah, that's
Good,
it.
really good.
Did I get you?
Yeah, you did.
Anything more?
I don't think there is on that.
Mm-hmm. And let Joey know a little bit more about what it was like to have to maintain two different versions of yourself.
It just seemed natural to me at the time. I didn't know any different. It wasn't until I was older that I began to find that that's not the norm for everybody. Some people, well, I think maybe a lot of people struggle with performing for their parents, trying to meet other people's expectations. But that really kept me in this place and not knowing what's real for me, who I am.
Yeah. So what I hear you say is as a child, you didn't really know any better. This was just the normal part of life.
Mm-hmm.
But as you got older, you started realizing that you really lost yourself in those two differentiated
Mm-hmm.
worlds.
Yeah, that's it.
Did I get you?
Yeah, you did.
Anything more?
I think that's it. I think we covered it.
And looking back now as an adult, what I think it might have cost me is?
As an adult, looking back, it cost me being authentic, being able to be myself. I was always not showing who I was. Found out early that if I asked questions about other people, I don't have to talk about me, and it kept me from having real connections with people.
So what I hear you say is as you got older and became an adult, you couldn't really connect with people because you hid that part of yourself and you were more focused on what was going on with them. You couldn't be yourself, your authentic self, or even show yourself to those people that you wanted to connect with.
Yeah.
Did I get?
Yeah, you did. And it's sort of a learned behavior then to ask people about themselves so that I don't have to share. Because people like to talk about themselves usually.
That's what keeps us in business, right?
Exactly, keeps the money coming.
Yeah. Anything more?
That's it.
And what I think I really needed, or what I wish would have happened back then.
What I wish had happened back then is that I had just unconditional, I've said love in the past, but I never doubted my parents' love. What I missed was unconditional acceptance.
So what I hear you say is you felt what you thought as a child was love from your parents, but you really wanted to feel that unconditional acceptance from your parents.
That's it.
And that's something that they did not or could not give you.
That's right.
Did I get you?
You did.
Anything more?
I think that's it.
And if I had received that unconditional acceptance, how you might see me differently now is?
If I'd gotten that unconditional acceptance as a child, I might not be having to attend workshops and groups like this that encourage me to bring my real self. You might not be seeing me at all right now.
Especially as a volunteer on
Touché.
stage, right?
Yeah.
Be able to work through these.
Yeah.
So what I hear you, saying is that if you felt accepted as a child for who you were, you wouldn't be at these things to learn more about yourself or how others, or how you want others to perceive you or accept you.
Yeah.
Am I getting
Yeah,
that?
you are.
Anything more?
No, that's it.
And Jim, is there anything else in there that needs to be said before Joey summarizes?
No, I just feel really good about being able to share that with you. Thank you for being a good listener. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being a good sender.
Can you mirror his appreciation?
So I hear you appreciating our connection and my listening to what your story is.
Yeah.
Did I get you?
You did.
Okay. Anything more?
You want some more validation?
Always, always.
No, you made it really easy. It was really nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you offer a summary? Give some bullet points of what you heard Jim share.
So what I heard you say in your story that you shared, or a chapter of your story, is that as a child you didn't feel unconditionally accepted, so you couldn't be your true self.
Yeah.
I also remember you saying that it was really important to have other people talk about themselves and you to share a little about yourself. And then I also heard you say about how you had two worlds, right? You had the church world, you had the school world, and how those two couldn't mix. So you couldn't be really yourself because you have to be one way in one and one way in another.
Yeah.
Is that a fair summary?
Is that a fair summary?
The only thing I would add is that being in those two worlds kept me from knowing what was real.
So what I hear you say is being stuck between those two worlds, it kept you from knowing what was real.
That's right.
Did I get you?
You did.
Anything more?
No, that's it.
And now that validation piece, Joey. So you make sense, and what makes sense about what you shared is?
Okay, so you make sense, and how does this go? What makes sense to me about what he shared?
Yeah, so given what you've heard from him, you can talk about, it makes sense, it makes sense you would feel this way, it makes sense that you would act this way, it would make sense that you think this thing, you believe this certain thing, you would want this certain thing. Anything that really stuck with you about what makes sense about Jim and what he shared.
Okay. What I think makes sense to me about what you shared is that you would be a totally different person today if you felt unconditionally accepted by your parents, and that you could be your true self even stuck between two worlds. You would know exactly how to connect with people.
Yeah.
And does that feel
Or maybe that there
validating?
wouldn't need to be two worlds.
So it wouldn't have to feel like there were two different worlds. It'd just be one world where you could connect with everyone. Do you feel validated?
I do. No, that was good.
Okay.
That was a good.
Good validation.
Uh-huh.
All right. And just check in. Is there anything else that you would like to be validated on?
Anything else that you would want to hear from me to feel validated?
Good.
No, I think you hit all the important parts.
Good. And then the empathy piece, right? So, given what you shared, I imagine you might be feeling.
So given what you shared, I imagine that you might be feeling more aware of what you went through as a child, and that as an adult it might help you understand more of how to connect with people or show who you really are with people.
Yeah.
Check in. Is that what you're feeling?
Is that what you're feeling?
That's part of it. Another part is I feel some sadness that this didn't happen in childhood, but I feel a great deal of hope about moving forward into just living my authentic self.
So as an adult, you felt sad for what you went through as a child, but you're still hopeful, or you're hopeful as an adult because you can show people who you really are as an adult.
Yeah, you got it. Great.
Is there any more?
Anything more?
That is it.
Beautiful. Go ahead and thank each other for the dialogue.
Thank you for
Thank
sharing.
you. I appreciate it.
There you go. And if you were a couple, I'd have you finish with a hug, but I'm not going to force it. Beautiful job.
All right. What did you like about your work?
Oh my God. I like.
Stand on this side of you, so I'm not. The projector is going to be
yeah.
on your face.
It's
so
okay.
You come
I
a
can-
little closer.
I can handle it. It's all
Okay.
good. It's actually not in my face. I'm short enough.
You're fun size.
I'm fun size. What I liked about my work is that I didn't need a script. I'm still new enough that sometimes I like to stick to a script, but even though it felt a little bit like I didn't need it.
Yeah. So you like that you didn't need the script. You didn't use the script,
Did I?
and you did great.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. One more thing you liked about what you did.
I like that I stayed calm.
You like that you stay calm. And I know it's right, like, boom, but is there anything you'd want to redo or experiment with if you did this again? It's okay if you don't have anything.
I mean, I think the only thing is that I would have liked to prepare more, but it's also, and on the flip
That's on
side,
me.
well, it's okay.
Yeah, but you wish you would have prepared more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, mentally at least.
Yes, mentally. Yes, thinking, oh, I'm going in to assist Michelle and she's going to throw me into a demo on camera. Yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, thank you so much. Don't you stay up here? Stay up here to receive what everyone else liked about your work.
God help me.
So I just want to say that I really appreciate your work. It was beautiful to see your work.
Am I mirroring? Right. So what I heard you say is that you loved watching me work and you thought it was beautiful. Did I get you?
You got me. And one thing in particular that I really loved was when Jim was excited to validate how you slowed the whole process down so that they got all the steps in.
And so one thing that you liked in particular was when Jim was really excited to validate, I was able to slow him down so that we got all of the steps in.
Yes.
I get you.
Yes. That was great. Okay, you ready for some more?
I'm going to try, I'm going to stretch
Can you
and
tolerate
receive.
like 5?
Yes.
Okay, so 5 people. Raise your hands if you're going to give feedback. 1, 2, 3, 4. One more. 5. Okay, good. So 6. We'll do 6. Okay, so in the order you raise your hand if you can.
Okay, I really like the way you listened to each of them, but you were listening and I could feel you really listening, but then you would turn and make sure the other person was receiving. So it was like, it was clear to both people that you were really present with each of them. But when the person was sending, like I sensed like you sort of laughed a bit with them, like just you were so joined with each of them equally. It was really neat.
So what I heard you say is that you liked that I was really present with the sender while they were sending, and also that while I was present with them, I was able to check in on the receiver, and you could tell that I was really joined with them and listening because I was going along, I was reacting to the conversation as it went on. Did I get that? Thank you so much.
Who was next?
I don't know
Yes,
what's
go
next.
ahead.
Okay. I really appreciated your tone of voice, your laughter. You made them feel comfortable. You were in tune with both of them. You were attentive to both of them.
Okay, let her hear that much.
Sorry. Thank you. I should have put the pause button on there. So what I heard you say is that you really appreciated my tone of voice, my laughter, and how I was attentive and attuned to both parties. Is that right? Okay.
Good. We'll save it for more people because you want to steal them all. Who is next? David.
I appreciated your calm command. Like you just were there, but you had command of the situation without having to be like a driving force energy. It was just very calm.
So what I heard you say is that you appreciated my calm command that kept things in line, but it wasn't overly forceful or authoritarian. You did not say that word. I said it, but is that? Did I get it?
You interpreted it well.
Okay. Thank you.
Eagle, are you next?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that you didn't, I know there's a script to it, but that you didn't have the script and that it felt so natural the way that you presented the stem. It like flowed into what they were saying, but it was also, you were probably thinking, but it felt like you were thinking and it like, this all made sense. And then they went into it, so I appreciate that.
Okay. So what I heard you say is that what you appreciated is that even though I didn't have a script, it felt really natural, like a natural flow back and forth, and that the way that I used the stems just
It made sense.
it made sense. And thank you. Right? Did I get that?
Yes.
Right. Thanks.
And Jim?
I appreciated it. It probably started at the time where I jumped in too soon with the validation, that I was able to stop looking at the screen for what's next and just get into the flow of it and be in it without thinking about what's next, what do I have to do. You just kind of gently led me through what needed to be done.
And so one thing that you noticed and appreciated was that at a certain point you didn't feel like you needed to have like an external thing and look at it, that you could trust that I was going to guide you where you needed to go. Did I get you?
Yeah, you did.
Thanks, Jim.
Dr. Davey?
Well, you made it look effortless. Especially the sentence stems. I was like, wow, she pulled out the right one at the right time.
So you appreciate that I made it look effortless and that I just pulled out the right sentence stem at the right time. Did I get you?
Right. Yay! Thank you.
This is actually a final recorded tape for certification. This is what it looks like. It's a flow dialogue, no script. You're making up the stems intuitively on your own based on where the conversation's going. You're tracking the energy. You're commanding but not controlling. You switched roles. You have validation. You have empathy. You have an opening. You have a close. You could do even more of a close, like one thing I'm taking away after the dialogue, something that closes it up. But I would still pass that 100%, flying colors, there's a connection made, you did all the steps. That's what I want to see for a final recording. Yeah. And you don't have to worry about that because we're on day 3 of 12. But I do tend to be pushy about getting you all the way to the finish line and getting you certified because I need workshop presenters and I need faculty. So I want you to at least get certified. Okay, so does validation, empathy make a little more sense? And we'll continue to talk about this and work on this, and you'll get to work on it in the afternoon and inviting validation and empathy in your practice session. I think we talked a little bit about this, but I do want to mention, this is in your manual, there's a little article on the fear of pleasure and receiving. And what I want to say about that is that when we hear the words we have longed for, we experience what Pat Love called reunion grief. That when we finally receive what we've always longed for, we have to grieve all the times we didn't get it. And it causes a pretty intense emotional experience that's dysregulating. And so we have lots of fancy ways to avoid or sabotage receiving what it is that we need. So Pat Love would often say, whatever we need the most, we resist the most. So oftentimes when we're working with couples, we can think of this as a giving and receiving experiment, which we expect them to fail. They weren't failing, they wouldn't be needing us. So giving will be hard and receiving will be hard. Because giving means stretching back into these lost functions. And receiving means that we accept the healing of our unmet needs and we start to feel intense emotions. Yes, Austin.
Just quick, so like what I'm just want to make sure what I'm hearing is like a way to get to repressive messages through the Imago experiences, unlike other traditional modalities where we're going through gratitude and appreciation and like positivity in order to unlock the repressive or unconscious unmet needs by some of those stem structures, or like focusing on the positivity in order to look for or see some of those repressive messages pop up. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I got the question.
Like, we're focusing on the positivity to get to the
Well, we can get there either way. Like in that tree yesterday, we can increase pleasure or we can decrease pain.
Okay.
So both of those ways, and generally dialogues on either one, you will hear parts of repressive messages and unmet needs.
So sometimes it's just jumping in and like starting with some, just
Basically, the way I would explain it is that you don't have to figure it out.
they just tell you.
You set the structure, hold the frame, and let the process start and continue. And then kind of pop your popcorn and see, I wonder if that's an unmet need. I wonder if that's a repressed message. I don't need to figure it out yet. They're sharing and listening, and we'll figure it out. Yeah, but it keeps us entertained because we're not doing anything except for getting paid. Okay, so a couple dialogue enhancement skills that I'm going to go through these. These are things that are probably more advanced. You don't need to worry about them now, but I want you to know what they are and that there are more things. And they are sentence stems, which are in all the structured dialogue. So eventually you'll be able, just like Emily, know where you want to go, how to take it. She went to the past naturally came up, so she didn't really have to bring them there. But then she took them to how they might be different today, which is a concept it's in a lot of our dialogues because it's more self-responsibility and keeps them from staying in a regression. So you'll be more skillful at the stems, when to use them, how to use them. And that's just practice. That's dyads, that's dialogues in this training is going to give you everything you need to be able to do this naturally. You won't even have to think about it. Emily is saying, yes, Michelle is not full of BS. Directives are things like, tell him more, tell her more about what this is. It's like really directing the flow and the energy, and we do that in an invitational tone. But it helps us stay in command without being controlling. Repetition, so that's one way you can heighten the emotion, is say that again. That seemed important. It deepens, it heightens, it brings more into consciousness. So whenever somebody's sharing and it seems like significant, either it didn't fully land, or maybe the person said it but maybe they aren't 100% congruent with it yet, or maybe you're just think this is really important. I want them to make sure they're taking this away. The other thing that happens with repetition is if Jim wasn't sure he got it, right, but he tries again or whatever, that's actually helpful for both Jim and Joey. The repetition is part of the process. It's not about getting it right. Sometimes the intelligence of the space has us zone out. And then by refocusing, it's actually more powerful than if it had been heard the first time. Exactly correct. So we trust this process. We trust the intelligence of the space. It will go where it needs to go. We're going to talk about focusing, doubling. These are two advanced techniques. I kind of showed you doubling with Austin, but we're going to talk more about that. And focusing is Eugene Gendlin. Anyone familiar with Eugene Gendlin's work on focusing? Okay, that's because this poor man is old as dirt. But a lot of somatic experiencing came out of his work. I've got a little clip of him explaining focusing, and there's more on the internet, but we use focusing a lot. So I'm going to talk about what that is. And then silence, we've already kind of touched on using silence, using touch, and deepening and shallowing. So I'm going to talk about all these things. We're going to go to lunch in about 15 minutes. We're going to go to Daily Juice. If you want, Juiceland, if you want to join us. Smoothies, bowls, some prepped food in the refrigerator, or you can go somewhere else. But that's where we're going to go, and it's a fairly quick move through the line and have something. And then I'll continue some of these enhancements afterwards. So intentionality is very important. Just having them breathe, the way Emily set that up, sets more intentionality to the conversation. It signals to our brain and our body, this is going to be different than the way I normally talk to people. So being really intentional with every step. This is kind of hard to read. I should make this white instead of black. Thank you. Everyone should have a Stephen. So after we identify the topic, so that's intentional, right? A very intentional setting of a topic, in agreement, we may set intentions explicitly. So one way I want to show up for you in this dialogue is, so we're setting an intention. I really want to listen deeply. I want to get clear about what's important to you about this topic. I want to stay regulated. I want to keep soft eyes. Like there's many things, and it's in the manual, some ideas about what you might do to set intentions. And this is one way where you can start to begin experiments, right? But in the beginning, I just want them to set an intention. Especially for a high conflict couple or a high conflict conversation, I can return to your intention then. Yeah, I just want to bring us back to that intention you both set, for you to listen deeply, for you to stay regulated. Let's just take a breath here, kind of supporting those intentions again, right? So it gives us a chance to come back to more intentionality if we get off track and they start to go into their scripts. Do you guys know what I mean by their scripts?
Yes.
What do I mean by that?
The roles that they play a lot of times.
The roles that they play. Yes. And the lines. The lines that they have, everyone has their lines. And when you get into that, I say this, and then Stephen says that, and then I say this, and we are not being conscious at that point. And then after the dialogue, we can identify intentional behaviors to support the takeaways. So given that, like for instance, Joey and Jim could have done something like that at the end. Given what I shared with you today, one way I want to be different this week is. So it could be a personal intention for how I'm going to be different this week. If it's a couple, it might be, and one way I want to be different with you this week is. And I would coach them to make that a small step. Yeah. And then deepening the dialogue. When we say that, what we're talking about is we want to get beneath the conscious problem solving, conflict, tension, their differences. We want to go beneath the conflict and content to the hurt and the pain. But we do that through a series of stems. We don't go, and what hurts me the most is. Or if they're starting to talk about the hurt, we try not to deepen the hurt. They're already there. Now we're going to help them learn a little bit more about that hurt. So that's I'd say a rookie mistake is deepening the hurt. If we're already there, we don't need to deepen it. There's some other techniques we could have to like, and what this hurt tells me about my past, or how this is familiar, or we might go into the childhood. But we want to get underneath the conflict to more vulnerability. And we do that by understanding what are the repressive messages that are related to this conflict, what are the unmet needs, what are my longings. This is a great way to move them out of hurt and pain towards a more future possibility. We want them towards the possibilities. So what I really long for with you is, and what would that would look like in my mind, in my imagination is, and how I might be different if I could receive that is. And you have all these stems as part of dialogues, but that's where that's a positive way to direct them out of the pain. But if they don't go into any pain, they're going to stay in their head, in their judgments, in their stories. So we do want to get beneath that iceberg, and then global desires are, like, I want you to always, always, always accept everything about me, no matter what, unconditionally, right? And if somebody says that, I'm like, well, yeah, you deserve that as a child. Every global desire is a child's wish, and it deserved to be met. And now we're in a relationship with two adults. You're not my parent. And so now how are we going to navigate? So again, you will get more on this. I'm just going over the surface and identifying some of these ideas. So sentence stems, I think I talked it already about why we do them. It's Nathaniel Brandon's work, and we just adopted it early, and we use it a lot. A lot of people think if they're using mirroring or sentence stems, they're doing Imago. I would say if you don't have people facing each other and talking to each other 90% of the time, and staying in a relational paradigm of everybody makes sense, then you're really not doing Imago. You're just using techniques. So I want you to keep that in mind, that it's about the energy and the space between, and these are techniques to help facilitate that. Directives, turn towards your partner. Will you see if there's more that you want to say? Tell her that again. These are just directives. They're not really a sentence stem. We're asking them to do something. And we always try to do that with consent, respect, not trying to be, not controlling, but using lead energy to help facilitate the connection. Yay! I say break, but really we're not going to lunch yet. Doubling. Okay. So this is where we speak for the sender to help the person speak the unspoken. To speak the unspoken. So, Austin, you were saying a lot to Jim. You weren't really saying it to him, but more about him. I really wanted to facilitate you saying something to him. I wasn't sure what you would say, so I just invited you to say one thing to him first. I didn't tell you what to say. I just invited you. When you weren't really sure, then I offered you something to try on. Try these words on, because that's what I thought I was hearing. And then, but I invite you, but use your own words if you want, or use these, So we help that person try it on. So here's an example, see if this fits. I feel really hurt when this happens, like I'm not important to you at all. That's the unmet need that people talk all around. So sometimes we'll bring it in.
Michelle, we were just commenting that both of us have done this, but I've never heard it called doubling before.
Yeah. It's a term from not play therapy. Adam Blattner. What is it? When the drama? Psychodrama. It's a term from psychodrama, where I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's like it's a scene in a play, and I'm working through my childhood, and it's like my mom's there, and I'm me. And then, Catherine, you stand behind me and you represent my angry self that can say to my mom what I couldn't say, right? So that's where it's coming from. Yeah. Anybody know Star Trek? Anybody a fan? Borg, the Borg? Yeah. Well,
You two shall be assimilated.
Exactly. Well, Harville and I are big Trekkies. And I like to say that Imago's like the Borg, like we will assimilate. If we like something, it becomes a part of our theory, and then we say, oh yeah, that's Imago. But really, all of this stuff has source materials. It's all pulled from someone previous. And before there were people in universities making stuff up, there were indigenous cultures that had a lot of this wisdom. So I think of Imago as an oral tradition where you learn, it's different for every person that's teaching, every person you see a dialogue, you're picking up different things and you're adding your voice to the tradition. So anyway, I'm just giving you some stuff. Yeah, Vagdevi.
Dan Weil uses doubling. He comes from the ego states model.
Okay, I'm not familiar with any of that.
So he's a couples therapist out of California. He
Okay.
died, recently.
Okay.
And he developed what he calls collaborative couples therapy.
Oh, great.
And he does doubling beautifully. It's well, the Gottmans also are assimilators, and so
Yeah.
they took that and called it something else. Well, they call it doing a Dan Weil. So.
Yeah. Yeah, wouldn't want to call it doing an Imago. Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, doubling, it's been around for a long time. This is 83, you know, it's really been around for a long time. I think Adam Blattner started doing psychodrama after the war, after World War II. So yeah, wherever it comes from, it's quite natural for you to do it. It will happen spontaneously, but just make sure you're doing it lightly because it could feel intrusive. So, and there's some recordings of me working with actual couples where I do it, so we'll stop and highlight and say, yeah, that's doubling. But it will come naturally to you because you're used to listening with that second ear of they're trying to say something here. But it's really powerful with a couple when one of them's trying to express something really loving and they're just not quite ready to be that vulnerable. And so we can bring them to a point of vulnerability through doubling. You're really important to me. Yeah, something like that. Which oftentimes they're saying that through criticism. Yeah. Touch is, obviously very important, and, I think all of this is kind of obvious, but besides touching each other, you can also really heighten the experience by having them touch themselves. So during a centering, ask them to put their hand over their heart, ask them to, rub their hands together and notice the energy between their hands and keep their hands open. I don't know if you know this, but you cannot be angry with your palms up. But I tried that as an intervention once to a man who was very angry, and he did not like that. Yeah, did not like that. So, but just be thinking about how touch can really facilitate understanding. In some of the dialogues, we'll ask people to locate a stem, something about, and where I feel that in my body is. And sometimes it's helpful, whether it's a positive or negative, to point to the body so the partner can see that it's real. Like I feel it here somehow makes it more real than I feel tension in my chest. So that can be a way to just help them understand, oh, I impact your body sensations. Yeah. So we can use touch and focusing. I'm going to play this clip, but we use it all the time when we say, I think Emily was using it, like just take a moment and see if there's more. We may take even more time, like go inside and just spend a luxurious moment seeing what's going on, see what needs to come forward, see if there's a body sensation. Like inviting them to make contact with their internal world and then come back to share it in the space. Because sometimes if it's a lost function, they don't know what they feel. They don't know what they think. That they need that contact internally before they can come forward.